After 30,000 words, over 80 pages, and half a year of researching TTRPG systems, I have finally created a fully classless system to plug into D&D, 5th edition, and very soon, many more TTRPGs just like it. Inspired by Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid and Skyrim's classless progression system, this new skill tree based leveling system of mine allows for a more natural approach to leveling up, where every power and ability you obtain has weight and value, and more importantly, is something that you want. How often have you multi-classed or selected a new subclass just to get 1 or 2 abilities from it, but then the other abilities along the way are kind of a bit meh? Like, the flavor is nice, but it doesn't really do anything for your overall build or vision for your character. This is where the Ugly Goblin's Classless Skill Tree comes into play. And it is finally complete and ready to help you design whatever character your heart desires. 2 skill trees to level up in simultaneously, one dedicated to combat and the other roleplay and exploration, and there's even one related to crafting coming very soon. And what is more, they are both 100% free for you to try and reference as you follow along with this video. And maybe in return, I might even be able to convince 1 or 2 of you to like and subscribe. I lost all my audio from the previous recording, so just ignore the outfit change. I have designed many skill trees at this stage, and most of which I've given away for free in most of my videos. And after playtesting it for quite a while at this stage, I have to say this is probably my favorite form of leveling progression as a whole, both in TTRPGs and video games. But before I get ahead of myself, some of you might be wondering, what is a skill tree and how do they work? Well, skill trees are typically networks of interconnecting nodes filled with unique powers and abilities which you can pick up and choose from every time you level up. Typically, selecting one ability opens up pathways that lead to similar and more powerful versions of that purchased node. This leveling process tells a very natural story for your leveling journey, with this web-like structure becoming a physical representation of your adventuring career and all that you have learned along the way. In this video, I will be discussing the newest addition to my collection of skill trees, that being the classless role-playing skill tree. But if you wish to learn about the other half of this skill tree that focuses on combat, check out either of these 2 videos here, where I will go into more detail about starting to build your character for the very first time, as well as going over how the combat skill tree works as a whole. So many of you as well have made dozens upon dozens of builds already with the combat classes skill tree alone, and I am genuinely so impressed by how far you can push this skill tree to do crazy things. Honestly, if any of you out there have a build that you want to share with the community or just want to hang out with a fun crowd, hop over to the Ugly Goblin Discord, and the link to that is in the description below. So by now, I assume you have a general understanding of the combat skill tree, or you probably wouldn't still be watching this video. If you don't, that's perfectly fine, but if you do get confused along the way, do feel free to hop over to either of these 2 videos I've recommended and also added to the description below. They'll hopefully answer any questions you might have as I'm ranting on about this roleplay skill tree. But also along the way, if you have any questions or even are coming up with some cool builds in your own mind, feel free to share them in the description below. I love looking through the comments, seeing what you guys are making, and also trying to help you as best I can with any questions that you might have. So to begin, let's break down what we're looking at here. Right at the center of this skill tree is a node called the colorless ability, and this is where we begin our leveling journey. You can purchase from this node at any time, and each of the nodes connecting back to it, which are also considered unlocked and available for purchasing. And any time you purchase from a node, you will unlock the adjacent nodes connecting back to the one you've just purchased, and on your journey will go. So for example, it makes sense that after taking the mining node and spending a lot of time in caves and in the dark, you might develop a sense of dark vision, and then later on, maybe you'll even become nocturnal, and these are all represented in nodes that are connecting back to the mining node. Purchasing nodes is also very simple, and when you make your character for the first time, or every time they level up after that, you will gain 3 role points, or ORP for short. Each node has an ORP cost, and you can purchase from any of the nodes that you have unlocked. Unlocked nodes are simply any node that are connecting back to a node that you have spent ORP on. And not only that, but you can purchase from nodes multiple times. Some even get stronger or grant additional abilities with each purchase. Let's look at the Inspire node. When you purchase from this node, you will gain 1 Inspire die, and these work very similarly to the Bardic Inspiration dice. And every time you purchase from this node, you'll gain an additional 1 of these Inspire die. And if you accumulate enough of these dice, you will start to level them up. They will start to grow in power, going from D6s to D8s and eventually becoming as large as a D12. So let's compare that to the Benevolent Aura node. This node grants you an aura with a 10-foot radius and allows you to choose 1 beneficial effect from a list of many, allowing any of your allies within your aura to now gain those beneficial effects. But if you choose from this ability again, not only will your aura grow in size, but you'll get to choose an additional beneficial effect that your aura provides. Both of these nodes grow in power, but in different ways. The Inspire node, for example, just grants you more additional uses of your Inspire dice, whereas the Benevolent Aura simply grows in power and strength. Now, both of these nodes come from the northern section of this skill tree, all of which are pink. And as you might have noticed, this skill tree is divided into different colored sections. And in the document below, I've also included a black and white version of this, as well as some tools that should help anyone who might struggle with distinguishing between different colors. Each section of this skill tree typically focuses on a different aspect of roleplay or exploration, allowing you to source your desired abilities with ease. The northern section, for example, is known as the Karma branch of this skill tree and focuses on good vibes, positive influences, and supporting others. Do note though that investing more or less ORP in any of the particular branches won't grant any additional benefits like the combat skill tree might do. Each of these sections and subsections exists entirely for flavor purposes and also to make referencing just a little easier for you all. Moving clockwise though, from the Karma branch, we can find the Tactical branch, followed by Genius nodes, Exploration abilities, a section dedicated to Guile, which contains powers all related to stealth and deceit, and then finally, we have the branch of Manipulation. Together, all of these branches come together to make the Roleplay skill tree, and you can navigate between them in whichever way you desire. Because one thing that the skill tree does very well is it makes the learning of new abilities feel very natural. Now, instead of you having to rationalize why you have some maybe unrelated ability like the Gloomstalker's Iron Mind power, for example, you can instead choose powers and abilities on your leveling journey that make sense to your character, things that they would have learned based on past events. For example, you might have dedicated a lot of your leveling journey to the Genius branch of this skill tree. But in a recent session, you are forced to survive in the wilds for weeks on end, and towards the end of that journey, you finally level up. Now, in a typical D&D game, you might have been leveling up as an artificer, for example, and you're now considering taking a level in either ranger or maybe druid, but it just doesn't really work with your current build. And not only that, but you're only 1 level away from getting the Flash of Genius ability, which is just super sweet. Very, very handy ability. I love it. So in the end of the day, you decide to forgo that really nice roleplay opportunity in exchange for something that makes a little more sense, a more optimal choice. But going back to the Classless character who might be in a very similar situation, they might look at the skill tree and see, oh hey, I could pop a couple of points into the Beast Speech ability or even the Gather ability and still have ORP to spare. Not only that, but they'll still have all of their leveling points for the combat skill tree to continue focusing on whatever build that they want to make. And as the adventure goes on, you will always have that Beast Speech ability, a token of the times that you spent surviving in the wilds and where you had to learn to live with wolves. I just think that's pretty neat.
I just think they're neat.
And it doesn't in any way like divert you away from your leveling path. You don't have to multi-class and dilute the current build that you have. You just have this neat little ability that you picked up along the way, and you can keep that for the rest of your story. Now, before I wrap up this video, let's just take a look at some of my favorite nodes in each of these branches and how you can use each of them in your own games. So hopping back to the top of the skill tree, I really love the inspiring leader node. It allows you to learn speeches that you can deliver to your allies during a short rest, and these will give them minor bonuses and other effects that they can carry with them into the next skill challenge, political debate, or perhaps even to fight against the final boss battle of the dungeon.
Blood alone moves the wheels of history. We must never cede control of the motherland. We are warriors.
As for the tactical branch, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite because I am such a sucker for playing tacticians in games. I just like tactical games, and I like them all, but I think some of you will be very happy to see the future sight ability, which works very similar to the divination's portent dice. At the start of each day, you can make a certain number of predictions. Each prediction is represented by a roll of a d20, and you take note of each number that you roll. And then during that day, anytime someone rolls a d20, you can replace their roll with any of your predicted numbers. I also love just the tactician ability that lets you swap any of your actions, bonus actions, or move actions with any of your allies. So now you can forgo your action and get the spellcaster to cast Fireball on your turn. The genius section is also super cool, but I think the overclock power is possibly my favorite. The ability granted by this node lets you send your mind into overdrive to ensure a successful outcome, whatever the cost. This lets you automatically succeed in skill checks or after additional purchases. That can be for attack rolls or even forcing other people to automatically fail a saving throw against one of your DCs. However, in exchange, you do gain a level of exhaustion. At the bottom section of the skill tree, it's filled with abilities all based around exploration, and I've actually covered a ton of these powers and abilities in my exploration video, which I highly recommend you check out, because for anyone who loves resource gathering, mining, hunting, or foraging for plants, all that kind of stuff, this is the branch for you. I've also included loads of lists filled with dozens of materials that all work really nicely with the smithing mechanics I've made videos for as well, links in the description, and also the cooking mechanics I've designed. But if I couldn't choose any of those nodes, I would go with the domain bond as my favorite node here. This essentially lets you become a Power Ranger as you dedicate yourself to a particular natural domain, such as deserts, mountains, oceans, or even the sky. There are 6 of these to choose from, but when you pick one of these paths, you become bound to it. In exchange, you gain unique spells and the ability to wrap yourself in a physical manifestation of your chosen domain. Now, this could be a Power Rangers costume, or it could be something a little more badass like this. Either way, you become unrecognizable and also gain a bunch of nice little buffs that can help you out in a pinch. Guile is up next, and honestly, it's so hard to pick favorites, especially for this one as well. I challenged all of you in the comments to have a look through this document and make a list of your favorite node for each one of these categories, because it's super hard. I'm also very curious what you like, and I can make more things like that in the future. But I think if I had to pick one here, I would probably go with the smuggler node. It's just so filled with flavor, and I think it's also probably a little broken in certain situations, but essentially it allows you to smuggle anything you like. If it's small or tiny, you only need to take like an action to hide it away. But if it's bigger than that, you need to take like an hour or something to hide it. And if it's a person, you can actually give that person your smuggling bonus to their stealth checks, which I just think is kind of cool. Really nice node, loads of flavor, and maybe a little broken in certain situations, but you can totally see someone who picks this node will make that their personality. They will become the smuggler and ask to smuggle everything. Now, lastly, we have the branch of manipulation, a combination of all the dark things from the guile node paired with the well-spoken and charismatic karma branch. And honestly, my favorite node here is the spirit caller ability. And honestly, I could have just given you the Speak with Dead spell here, but I wanted to do something extra. I wanted to go above and beyond with this, something really cool and crunchy. So when you purchase this node, you take 10 minutes to prepare a ritual, so long as you're in the presence of a corpse of a spirit or a location or object that the spirit or undead creature deemed important. When you do this, you can attempt to reach out to them, ask them questions, or simply pass on a message. You make a persuasion, intimidation, or deception check based on how you're trying to communicate with them. And the DC for this is based entirely on how long that creature has been gone for. If the creature died less than a week ago, then a DC 10 will suffice. But if it's been gone for over 100 years, then you're gonna have to roll at least a 25. Having loved ones nearby can also help with this ritual, and you can also use it to simply help the spirit pass on into the next life. But that about wraps up this entire video. I'm super curious to know what you think of this, if this is something you'll use in your games, and what changes you might make if you apply it to any of your campaigns that you're currently running. You might also be wondering, where can I use these characters, and do they play well with wizards and warlocks and other characters who have classes? And to that I say yes, this is a system fully designed to be compatible with 5th edition, but you might find that the leveling scales a little differently. Characters with classes will level up at a very stable rate, whereas characters without classes using the Classless Skill Tree will kind of go at a weird curve where they start off very weak, but will get very, very strong at the later levels. And if you want to balance that out, I might recommend giving your characters with classes a few nodes or two, like from the combat skill tree or from the roleplay skill tree, just to help them along with keeping up with the characters without classes. And if you're looking for an epic setting to run one of your Classless campaign settings, then I have to recommend this video's sponsor. Yes, this video has a sponsor, but I'm not gonna go cram anything down your throat. This is totally up to yourselves if you want to get involved with this Kickstarter that's just finished and is now on its evergreen stage, so you can still purchase it now. And that is The Wandering Tavern by Homie and the Dude. The Kickstarter for this book is over, like I said, but the PDF is available as an evergreen product, which you can purchase using the link below. And if you use my coupon code GOBLIN10, you'll get 10% off whenever you make this purchase, and you'll let them know who sent you. This is a gorgeous Ghibli-inspired setting set in an enormous flying city filled with a bunch of corruption and political intrigue. And you know how often when you get a world map or a city map in D&D, it's more of a reference usually. You can't really use it as a battle map, for example. In the Wandering Tavern, every single nook and cranny has an explorable space for you. It is packed. It is such a fun location to just run around in game. And it's got mechanics for skyships. If you do have the time, go check it out using the link below, and remember to use my coupon code GOBLIN10 so you can get 10% off. And lastly, I just want to thank all of my incredible patrons. It's you who have supported me through this entire journey so far. You are legends and deserve only good things. Thank you for being there as I've developed this skill tree and made it what it is today. And if you wish to support me and what I do, or even just want a bunch of very cool PDFs and homebrew rules for D&D, as well as a ton of more skill trees, you can do so over on my Patreon. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you enjoy playing some Classless characters, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!